Welcome back, Kings fans. It's time for the half-season check-in on the 2025-26 season for your LA Kings. Joining me today, John Kelly. How are you doing today, John?
I'm great, Jesse. Happy New Year. Hopefully you're doing well.
Doing all right. And Jim Fox, how are you doing today, Jim?
Doing great. Thanks very much for having us again, Jesse. Happy New Year. And halfway already?
Yeah, no, I know. It feels like it came – it's a condensed season because of the Olympics, but it does feel like it came a little bit sooner than it usually does. Maybe not. I don't know.
It's at Christmas. And then you're thinking, oh, okay, I got a break there, and it's kind of halfway. And then it came upon me a lot quicker than I thought. Yeah.
Now, this season, this conversation's not going to go as smoothly as some other half-season check-ins did because, listen, 2 games into the season, I wrote an article where I called this a bizarro season. Full disclosure, I was kidding. Like, I just thought, oh, it's a funny 2-game start. It's a weird 2-game stumble. I did not genuinely anticipate the season would be as weird as it has been, John, but it has been a very weird season.
Well, I think you could say that about the entire NHL, quite honestly, because if you look at the big picture, some of the teams that you thought would dominate and be great teams have been either average teams or below average. Mm-hmm. Conversely, you have some teams like Boston and Pittsburgh that are surprisingly really good. I think you could throw San Jose into that category. They're right there with the Kings. I thought the Ducks would be a better team. Not this good, although they've come back to earth in the last couple of weeks. But I think overall, Jim, it's been a really crazy year. But it just goes to show you from one year to the next in this salary cap era, there's a lot of parity, and you just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, to me, the biggest surprise is Colorado and how many games they've lost. I didn't expect them to lose 3 games. After this point of the season, I expect them to lose maybe 1 or 2. But the way they've done it, and again, that division is just dominating. And I was listening to another podcast the other day talking about how the Pacific is so bunched up, and one of the big reasons for that is Minnesota, Dallas, and Colorado combined have lost 4 games total to the Pacific Division this year. So the Pacific Division teams are trying to, they're beating each other up. They're trying to make some headway. When they're playing those 3 teams, they're just not winning. So, very interesting. I agree with you on Boston and Pittsburgh, San Jose and Anaheim. We expected them to be better as far as the Pacific teams. The other teams we thought were going the other way. How tight it is right now in the standings, I think we can finally believe that parity is here. They've been saying it for years and years and years, but it's here.
The other thing that's really surprising is last year the Jets won the President's Trophy. They are now in dead last in the entire NHL. That is a shock to me. Of all the things that are out of sorts and surprising, that to me is number one. That they are really struggling right now. That's an understatement. To be last in the entire NHL, crazy.
And yet to only be 11 points out of a playoff spot while being last in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, but when you're 11 points out and you got to climb over 8 or 9 teams, you're in big trouble.
For sure. It's just, like I was talking to my dad earlier, and, he was saying, there are some teams that are out just because of the fact that they have to climb over, right? You may only have so many points, but you have to climb over teams. But then you look at the standings and you go, well, Chicago wins 2 games in a row, and they've just climbed over 4 teams. It's a great. We're going to get into potential reasons for the bunch up, but let's start off with the number one question. We already had the answer by the time we did the quarter season check-in. Will the pending free agents sign extensions? The big one was Adrian Kempe. He has. Next up now, I suppose, is whether or not they want to address Andrei Kuzmenko before the end of the season. Now, he's had a really strong couple weeks, but I don't know. I don't know how they want to handle his contract status. And, of course, Brant Clark will be a restricted free agent at the end of the year. But this seems like a perfect excuse to talk about Andrei Kuzmenko, Jim, because the team it's a weird season, so I don't even – like last time I think we said they stumbled out of the gate. It feels like everybody stumbled out of the gate, so I don't even want to put it specifically on the Kings. But things didn't work out the best case scenario, and Andrei Kuzmenko, up and down the lineup. But now they seem to have found – some chemistry between him and Kevin Fiala, and it can only work for the best for Kuzmenko and Fiala and the team.
Yeah, I think the circumstances of the struggle offensively put Jim Hiller in a situation where he had to come up with a combination that I don't think anyone would believe at the beginning of the year, a bizarro season, because they're almost the exact same player, righty-lefty, both smaller in stature but so difficult to knock off the puck. Both are competitive. They're in there. Both are highly skilled, and they have that offensive creativity. And usually two guys on the same line like that, just doesn't necessarily mix. With Kuzmenko, as far as the signing, you need a much longer runway here to see what's going on. Much longer. So I don't think they're going to address it at all till the end of the season. Wait till the summer. Of course, if he plays the rest of the season, we're right at the halfway point. The way he has the last 2 weeks might be a different story. I still think you wait till the end. Really interesting player. Personality off the ice. I think some people are taken aback by that. For us, covering him, extremely fun. Can get into that risky nature of hockey, which I think in the last 2 weeks is gone from his game. If he's trying something risky now, it's deep in the offensive zone, so you have 200 feet to cover up if it doesn't work. I think he struggled, and one of his teammates the other day brought up looking for something that isn't there, overthinking situations, trying to make that perfect pinpoint pass, and now he's going one-on-one on guys. And you know what? That helps too. That makes it less risky because everyone else on the ice, his teammates know he's going to try him one-on-one. So it's not a guessing game. It's right there in front of you. But now I think he's not standing and looking. He's moving and trying to make the other team react. So keep going with that. But as far as addressing that, no. And with Brandt Clarke, that's an interesting situation. I mean, the Kings don't have a lot of players like him, right?
No, they don't. To your point about Andrei Kuzmenko, that we're recording this Tuesday morning on the 6th, the goal he scored against Minnesota last night, I feel like is exactly what you're talking about. He started at the top of the faceoff dot, didn't look for a pass or couldn't find one.
And he was looking, and that cross-ice pass might connect, but it also might be picked off. And the other, so he kept it on the same side, kept it on the strong side, didn't change, and he marked his man, said, "I'm going you one-on-one." And he beat 3 guys probably by the end of the thing, including the goaltender. And he has that skill. He has that capability, and you want to see that. I think we've seen him slow down, coast, spread his legs out, and hasn't been working, so he's made some adjustments.
Yeah, I agree with Jim. I think that, first of all, when you look up the word enigma in the dictionary, there's a picture of Kuzmenko because I don't know what to expect on a nightly basis. Don't forget, he's been a healthy scratch 5 or 6 times this year. And I know that last year coming over at the deadline, he played really well, especially on the power play. But this year, in the first couple of months, it just wasn't working. And the power play wasn't working, as we know. They had to change it. But if he can play the rest of the season in the playoffs the way he's playing right now, he's going to score 20 to 25 goals. And he'll be a very effective player. So obviously there's no rush. And I've said this many times about pending UFAs, Jesse, as you know. It takes 2 to make a deal. So who knows? Maybe Kuzmenko and his agent are thinking, you know what, we're going to go to market on July 1st. So just because the Kings might want to sign him today or next month or whatever, it still takes 2 to make a deal. So, but I think if he can play more north-south, more direct, not overthink things, and shoot the puck more, he can be a really good player. I think it's pretty obvious that he's a talented kid and needs to simplify his game. You see him shoot the puck, the wrist shot sometimes, Jim. I mean, it's well over 90 miles an hour. And if he could hit the net more and shoot more, he'll score a lot more goals.
He's one of the few players that can score from distance with a wrist shot.
Exactly.
With a snapper.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, you have to get in tight. Last year in the playoffs against Edmonton, just top of the circles, wrist shot. And he still has to do that more, right?
Yeah.
He still has to. But right now, we don't need more, just more of the same.
Yeah, and don't forget, as you know, and you know, Jesse, don't underestimate how well Turcotte's playing on that line. Mm-hmm. He's the guy, to me, that's sort of driving the line. He's the conscience of the line. He plays north-south, and he lets the other 2 guys play east-west and do their fancy stuff, and it works. So right now, that line is really clicking. So good on Turcotte, who's been elevated since the Deneau trade, and I think the line is it's not one that at the start of the year would say, these three are going to be together and really good. I don't think we could predict that, but right now it's working, and let's just see how it runs out.
In the category, I suppose, of free agent signings, the Kings, since the last time we did this, also signed Wojtek Ciasz and Jimmy Lombardi to entry-level contracts. I don't know if that – I mean, it doesn't really matter to the Kings for this season, but in the future it'll be – and the Lombardi signing is interesting for eligibility reasons that we don't need to go into. But
MVP of the World Juniors.
Yes, Wojtek Ciasz.
And he was great against Canada the other night.
And,
really good.
That was – so at least you're excuse me. At least you're continuing to build that.
Yeah.
You need as many as those as possible, whether they end up playing for you or becoming an asset, all those things. But I think to a certain extent, he came out of nowhere because, I didn't hear his name a lot. Early in the season as a prospect and and I know he's going to the WHL now, right, for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
so that'll be, North American, get him in there. And pretty usually more physical, the Western Conference. So the Western Hockey League for juniors. So that'll be a good test for him. But I was happy to see what happened there. Of course, being Canadian, I would rather Canada win, but I was very impressed just on how the Czechs took it to Canada. They didn't sit back and wait.
No.
They took it to them. I know they won the silver. Sweden wins the gold, but very impressive performance.
And that's, 3 or 4 years in a row now that Czechia has beat Canada?
At least three, yeah.
And on
Eliminated.
late goals, by the way. I think the last 3 years they've scored the game-winning goal in the last 3 minutes or so. Really crazy. But, he was named the MVP of the tournament, I believe. A kid that was a second-round pick that, to me, from watching on TV, has really good speed and obviously really good skill. So that's great to see.
The next question on the list is, will the Kings get the same goaltending as last season? This was a little bit wibbly-wobbly at the quarter poll. Right now, I'd say yes, Jim. I think Darcy Kemper, he was named to Team Canada, the Olympic squad. Darcy Kemper is playing outstanding, especially last night against Minnesota.
Yeah, I think he has improved his game. I think the last time we chatted, I was a little down on that, and I think the numbers would prove me correct. He really struggled earlier, the first month of the season. Next month, continually better and markedly better, just really improving. The Minnesota game, again, we'll probably, recency bias, you take a look at it. But I think he settled his game down. I think he's become a consistent factor, and that's the Kings will need that. The Kings deny opportunities as well as anyone, but still, you need that big save every once in a while. And when he went down, I thought Forsberg was good enough as a backup situation. But since Darcy missed that time with injury, I think he'll see a heavy workload here.
Yeah, I don't think the goaltending is an issue at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's the strength of this team. The Kings are, top 3 in goals against this year? You have to give the goaltenders a lot of credit for that. I agree with Jim. I think that both goaltenders, I don't want to say struggled early on, but they weren't on their A game. At the same time, the Kings had Dumoulin and Ceci come in as new players. That matchup took a little while to sort of settle in. So the Kings weren't a great defensive team in the first month, so that hurt the numbers, I think. But no question, to me, Kemper in the last 2.5, 3 months has been arguably as good as almost any goalie in the NHL. So good on him for making the Olympic team.
The numbers I look at, because I understand what the Kings do as far as a system. And when you take a look at early on the first month, a goal saved above expected were down near the bottom of the league for our goaltenders. So that's, you're getting a good structure in front of you. Yes, you have a couple new players, but again, when you deny the opportunities and the puck's still going in, it was one of those. But that's been cleaned up. That has been cleaned up. So Vezina Trophy, I think that was the part of the question earlier. Was it going to be caliber? It's getting there. Minnesota played a hard, grinding, down low. And we talked about it, John, in the game a couple times. You don't talk about a goaltender's strength a lot, like physical strength. And Darcy was strong. He had to be, because there was a lot of jam plays there.
Yeah, and his anticipation to me is really good. And he made a couple of saves last night going east to west where, he saw out of the corner of his eye the player coming in or whatever, or getting ready to shoot it, and he read the play really well. His anticipation is superb.
And on those moves, John, he was tight, right? There was no 7-8 hole. There was nothing there. Anton Forsberg has struggled with that a little bit, where pucks are going through him. He's getting a piece of it, but so those are those little details, right, that you work on with Mike Buckley, that when you're going across, because a lot of times you use your arms for balance when you're going, but you got to get them tight. And I think Darcy put on a clinic last night in that game because of those types of saves.
I hate to oversimplify, but it feels like goaltenders can be divided into two primary camps. Your athletic reaction goalies, like a Jonathan Quick, and then your numbers, not systems goalie, but method goalies like Carey Price. And when Darcy Kemper is at the peak of his game, it feels like he's a real good blend of both. Because to your point, Jim, last night, he is playing a solid, contained game. But I mean, John, I heard you last night on the telecast exclaim because of some of the Darcy Kemper saves, where it was his reaction, it was his tracking the puck and just reading the play and getting across and making an unbelievable save.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's a combination of a lot of things. His rebound control, for the most part, is really good. I think an undervalued part of his game, Jim, is also his stick. How many times have we seen pucks come across the blue paint and he gets the stick out, or he uses the poke check? He's really good with his stick. So obviously a top goaltender. So you have to have that in today's game, especially on a team like the Kings that just doesn't score a ton of goals, obviously. So it must be really hard, Jim. I can't imagine how tough it is some nights on Forsberg and Kemper when the Kings might be struggling to score, and he knows if he lets in that second goal or third goal that his team's in trouble. But it doesn't seem like it bothers those goaltenders.
When we've talked about it when he's working his stick well, that's when I think Darcy's on his game. And that's a weird part of a game,
So that's
right?
a key for you.
I look, focus, setup, everything. When that's involved, I think that shows me he's on his A game. Jesse, as far as categories, I agree with you. I think he's a combination. He's a hybrid. I put Forsberg in that blocker of the puck. Not necessarily athletic, just using a big frame. But to John's point, and Mike Buckley told me a couple years ago, the strongest part of Darcy Kemper's game is his read to get set up, and he has a big presence. There's a lot of times where people shoot wide because they can't see anything.
Next question after goaltending, and this one is injuries make this one a little bit difficult to answer, and then also the Olympic wrinkle is, will Drew Doughty rebound from his injury last season? I think the answer is pretty clearly yes, but then he's also had two separate injuries this season. So he hasn't played a full season, but he's played well enough to get named to the Olympic squad, and I feel like the Kings are getting. I mean, I think is on ice at 5-on-5 goals against. He's 1.84, which I'm not entirely sure where that places him in the full. It's top 50 out of 283 defensemen in the National Hockey League, so it's pretty good.
It's interesting to me the way I see him perceived by some, and yet he's on the Canadian Olympic team, which puts him right at the top. And of course, I have to apologize. I cannot speak today. I cannot cough. I'm going to sneeze soon. Drew, healthy. Yes, he is. He's back. His footwork, that's what you look at. Last year when his ankle he could not pivot. He could not move quickly down low with his footwork. Now he's back that way. I think just the amount of ice time he continues to get. When the Canadian team talks about his impact in the locker room, can you imagine what he does here? So he has that same type of thing, probably even at a higher level, right? Because when he goes into the Canadian Olympic team locker room, he's got players that are better than him. Here, he's probably the best defenseman, and he's still bringing that energy, he's still bringing that swagger. I'm fine with Drew this year. I'm glad to see that he's back healthy. And again, I just look at his foot speed, and it's there.
Yeah. I did a real quick tweak on the numbers. Out of 146 defensemen that have played 500 minutes or more, Drew Doughty's goals against per 60 at even strength rank him, I found it a second ago, 18th.
Yeah.
So
We had stat not too long ago. Mike Kelly, who does, he's our
data analyst.
Yes, for FanDuel. Ranked Drew in 6 or 7 different defensive categories. And he was like, 17th, 19th, 23rd. And, Mike brought up, rightly so, keep in mind, there are 64 top 2 defensemen in the league. And when you're ranked, top 50 in just about every one of those 6 or 7 categories, the numbers think he's doing well.
And for a team that prioritizes defense the way that the Kings do, and they clearly do, it's not just Drew Doughty, right? It's Drew Doughty and Mikey Anderson. And the two of them as a pair continue to be, Drew has said this to the media multiple times this season, maybe his offense isn't as prolific as it has been in previous seasons, but defensively, he believes he's just as good as he's ever been. And the numbers back that up.
Yeah, to me, you watch him play, 2 things come to mind: smart and competitive. And I'll take those 2 attributes over a lot of others for any player. And, he's 1 point shy of 700 in his career. I mean, 700 points for a forward is a really good career. And he's a defenseman. So, again, to make the Olympic team, and we talked to Drew early in the season, as we know, and he was determined to make that team. And he did so. And, hey, Canada, they could field, just like the U.S., quite honestly, they could field 2 teams that would be as good as probably the other teams that are going to compete in the Olympics. So I think he's bounced back. I didn't see him nightly like you did last year, Jim, but I know that he obviously had a really hard injury, but did play in the 4 Nations after playing in, 2 games coming out of the injury. But I think he's been exceptional this year.
If I could do that again, and I know Drew wouldn't want to, I would have him nowhere near the 4 Nations and wait and get 100% because he went into the 4 Nations in better condition than he came out of the 4 Nations. And, John, he couldn't skate last year. He could not pivot in the corner. I talked to him earlier this season about when I saw him this year, I'm going, Drew, you're in there. He said, yes, because I can get there. I can move. I can go either way. So he can stay with men. Last year he had to back off. He couldn't get too tight because, time and space. So backing off, you're giving the other guys time, and all of a sudden they make a play. So he's back to being healthy. Yeah, 100%.
So let me guess. Last year when he was named to the 4 Nations tournament and he had an injury, you didn't go to him and say, Drew, don't play, because he probably would have punched you in the face.
No, I think there would have been stick work.
Okay.
And usually I would have to dislodge it from my throat. Yes.
The next question is how will the D-Corps minutes be distributed? And there was a little bit – it's such a weird we're going to just keep saying what a weird season it is, but there were moments in the season where the pairs were not what they have been predominantly. But basically speaking, Jim, we've seen Edmondson and Clark, Anderson and Doughty, Dumoulin and Ceci, which is pretty much what we expected heading into the season. Injuries, experimentation with the lineup when things didn't go necessarily great caused different pairs. But for the most part, that's been the 3 pairs.
Admittedly so by the coaching staff. To expect Dumoulin and Ceci to play together right out of the gate was wrong. So they did that. They struggled. Then they had to move things around. Mikey Anderson's game went way down because he was no longer getting the ice time. So let's hope you're halfway through now that part of the season, incorporating new players into your team, prevented you from getting the wins you thought you were going to get. So now that everything's back to normal, so to speak, make it happen that way. Having said that, I don't think there's any question that Brandt Clark has earned his way a little bit more respect from the coaching staff, and he's getting more quality ice time in certain circumstances. Yes, if the game is tied or the Kings are trailing, he's going to get way more ice time. If the Kings are ahead, he's going to get less. That's the way it is, specialized as far as players. But, yeah, it's pretty set right now. And right now I think it's going to be – it looks like it's steady and consistent. So that's – I know the last uptick of the last 3 weeks or so, offensively, at least creating chances, spending more time in the offensive zone, there has been a conscious effort, and I think it's been led by Drew Doughty, regardless of points or not. We knew Brandt Clark could do it, but the Kings need a 5-man attack because you're going to only attack with 5 men and be successful. You can't attack with 3 and 2 separate. And the Kings defensemen, it's not in their DNA. It is not. Brandt Clark would be the only guy that you would say excels in that area. but you still have to jump up. You still have to get involved. You have to change the read that the defenders are looking at by jumping guys into the play. And whether it's built into your body or your skill set or not, the Kings are doing that. So if you're talking about ice time and how it's distributed, right now I think everyone thinks as a defenseman for the Kings they have to at least be involved in the offense.
Yeah, no question. When I look at the Kings defensive group, as a whole, all 7 guys, including Moverara, who's played well when he's been called upon, and thankfully the Kings have had very few injuries this season. But I look at the word of trust, and I don't think it really matters if the Kings have their first pairing on or third pairing in a tight game, down the road in a playoff game. I think if you're Jim Hiller and the coaches, you trust Ceci and Dumoulin, or you trust the other pairs. And I think that's big. And I know that Ken Holland said at the start of the year when he got Ceci and Dumoulin, he wanted size and experience. And that's what they have gotten from those two in particular. So I like the group. It's not the best defensive group in the NHL. The Kings don't have a Cale Makar or a Quinn Hughes, but it's solid and it's deep and it's very dependable and it's also really big. And come playoff time, you need bigger guys, and I think that's going to benefit the Kings in the playoffs.
The 2 years he's been here, and you saw him in St. Louis, to me, Joel Edmondson has exceeded expectations more than anyone. I mean, he's come in, he's played decent minutes, he's chipping in offensively, but shutdown is what he was brought in for, and he's logging minutes that I didn't expect him to do as much as he's doing, and I'm just glad to see it. That's. We say it occasionally, and people, he's a hockey player, Joel. What does that mean? It just means he's there ready every single night.
And you know what's interesting about him, Jim? I covered the Blues, of course, in 19 when they won the Cup. He was basically the Blues' 6th defenseman that year, and he didn't play every single game. So he's evolved from playing the 6th role, winning a Cup, and now he goes to a few other teams, including Montreal. Now he comes to the Kings, and he is now in the top 4 and playing really well. So, he's a smart defenseman. He's a big guy, and he's simplified his game, and he's become a very effective defenseman.
I see respect for him from the opposition. Yeah. That's when I look at him, and he runs a guy in the boards, but he did it clean. It was hard. It was rough. It was on the edge, and I think they respect him for that.
What I find most puzzling about this season from the blue line is it feels like on any given night it's feast or famine for any specific player. So some nights Brian Dumoulin gets 25 minutes a game, and then the next game he'll get 15 minutes. Some nights Drew Doughty gets 25 minutes. He never obviously is going to get 15, but every now and then there'll be some random defenseman, and there's only 6 of them, so it can't be that random. But Brant Clark will play 6 or 7 games, 22 minutes or more, and then 6 or 7 games, 15 minutes, and it sometimes it depends on special teams play.
That one with Brant, again, is based on the score.
Yes, or like last night against Minnesota, the Kings had 5 penalties, and he doesn't kill penalties.
Exactly.
So.
But like the game, I went to him the next day against Tampa Bay. He played Kucherov outstanding in that game. Stick work and time and space and all that stuff. So that's why I think he's going to even when the Kings are leading in games, I think he's going to start to get more ice time.
I mean, you can ask Mike Kelly about this. His underlying numbers are real good.
Yeah, I think you're not going to be able to overlook that.
Yeah. And don't forget, he's 23 years old, right? So, as you know, Jim, defensemen take longer to develop and find their game. And a player that has that much skill and smarts, I think that he's going to have a really long, successful career, no question.
I'm going to combine the next 2 questions because they are, will the top 9 chemistry continue, and will the new 4th line be trusted and contribute? Because whatever anybody thought the forward lines were going to be is out. This is completely out. I thought about rewriting the questions at the halfway mark, but I thought that wouldn't be fair because I wouldn't be able to get them to you guys in time. Phil Deneau is gone. There have been injuries up and down the lineup. Kuzmenko got scratched. Kopitar got an injury. Fogle got an injury. Armia has come out of nowhere. Perry started the season on the IR, and then he came out hot. Jim, I don't know what to make of the forward lines yet.
You're right. That's the way it is. again, the combination, John brought up Turcotte and
Yeah.
Fiala with Kuzmenko. I would never have thought that. They're a little thin, though. They are. And they've just beat Minnesota twice. Hopefully that's the kickstart for the rest of the season. But they're a little thin, and they have to move around maybe from game to game, from matchup to matchup. The fourth line really has not had an impact recently, yes, but not an impact because Jim Hiller's come out and said point blank, it's basically 11 forwards most nights, and Sammy Helenius will be the 12th, but he'll hardly play. That's changed a little bit here recently due to in-game injuries. Played his most ever, right, last night, I think, career high as far as time on ice because Kopitar went down so early in the game. And Armia. So, yeah. And that'll have to shift around. But no, just as far as combinations go, I think you're right. And the season has not gone the way the Kings had hoped, so they've tried to make some adjustments.
I've been impressed with Helenius' game the last, 2 or 3 outings. It's such a small sample size, though, because some nights, as we've said, he plays 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
And I'm sure that's really hard for any player to sit for long periods of time. But the one thing that I've seen from him, Jim, is that he plays north-south, and he's a smart player. And he's also obviously a really big player. Now, his skating is not elite, as we know. So if he can be a smart player and play tough, he had a fight earlier this year. He stuck up for a team, and I can't remember the game, but I love that. I think that, as Jim Hiller has said many times, that he's a coach's dream. And who knows, maybe by the end of the season, he'll find a bigger role on this team. I mean, he's not going to play 20 minutes a night. We know that. But maybe his ice time will get up to, 7, 8, 9 minutes. Who knows?
One thing that can help your speed is how you read and react.
Exactly.
And you don't improve your skating, but you see things quicker, so then you get there quicker.
Like Corey Perry.
Yes. Never been a great skater, right?
No.
Understand Tyler Toffoli when he was here.
Or Lucky Luke.
Understand when that hole is there, that's when you get there. You don't have to get there earlier.
Yep.
You just have to get there when it's open. And now with Sammy, I'm pretty sure the long-term plan is to carry that big body around, his legs have to get stronger. So I'm not a believer. You can't improve your skating. When you're 18 years old, that's as good as you're going to be. Well, I think with the sports science nowadays, the way they break things down, I think they feel with Sammy that next summer again it'll be huge for him to really work on his leg strength so that he can carry the rest of his body around with him. But the more game situations he gets into, the quicker he's going to play. Not skate faster, the quicker he'll play.
This was the most shocking stat for me last night against Minnesota. Again, we're recording this Tuesday morning following the second win over Minnesota. None of these guys played the most minutes in the game, but as a 3-man unit, Malott, Helenius, and Perry played 6 minutes and 1 second,
which is 6 minutes with.
Which is the most.
I was listening to you last night.
That's the most minutes of any forward line last night. Not individuals, but as a 3-man unit
together.
That line played the most together out of any 3-man combo. Now Turcotte, Kuzmenko, and Fiala played 6 minutes, so it was 1 second behind. But still, just the fact that Jim Hiller trusted and utilized that 3-man combo, Malott, Helenius, and Perry, more than any. And Kopitar was out, Armia was out. There's all sorts of reasons for it, but still. He trusted him, he used them, and they got the job done. They won the game.
I feel the same way about Jeff Malott. Again, the more NHL reads he gets, the quicker he'll play. Because, again, his foot speed's probably not, for fourth liners, usually they're not the fastest guys. But and I like that they go with more size on the fourth line. I'm a small player, but I think size, you get to certain situations, playoffs, I think the size is the difference maker.
And don't forget, neither Helenius nor Malott have played 100 NHL games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know Malott's not a young kid. I think he's, 27, maybe 28. So these guys are still learning, and they're learning at the NHL level.
You know what'll help you learn? Play against Quinn Hughes every day.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my. He can just dangle out there. And if you're defending him, and the Kings did a pretty good job, right? Again, that back to the DNA, back to the identity. Kaprizov had a couple games where not much was going on for him, and he's one of the most dynamic players in the league. So as a group, they can do it. I'm interested to see the progression of that fourth line the rest of the year. Just interested to see how they can learn the game on the fly.
Assuming, and obviously there's half a season to go and there's the trade deadline and, who knows, call-ups, whatever, injuries. But for right now, my curiosity is Turcotte the permanent pivot between Kuzmenko and Fiala? Because I believe everything we've said earlier about Fiala and Kuzmenko being sort of mirror images of each other on either side. I like Alex Turcotte. I like the way he's playing, but it just seems like as far as upper ceiling of potential, there are other candidates to center that line. And I have really liked Alex Turcotte combined with Alex Laferriere and with Trevor Moore. And right now, Byfield, Jim, I don't want to say he's relegated to third-line duty, but if he's in between Armia and whomever, whether it's Moore or
he leads the Kings in ice time up front.
Yes.
So he's again, whether you agree with it or not.
Yeah.
Jim Hiller has decided that he would be the shutdown centerman for the Kings. And that puts you in very, very difficult situations, which is fine. And he's starting to produce a little bit more offensively. I think you'll still need more. This is what I would say. And John's point earlier, you need two. I think the centerman is not on the roster right now.
Fair enough. Because John, the issue for me is, and this is 100% not a knock on Quentin Byfield. This is praise for Anze Kopitar. The brilliant thing about Anze Kopitar's career is that he has been excellent as a defensive center and also as an offensive center. So to have a center who can replicate even one half of Anze Kopitar's game is found money. It's great. To expect somebody to do both is tough. So if you're going to take Quentin Byfield and say the skill, the part of your game that we're going to focus on and try and cash in on is the defensive side of the game, you're not excluding all of the offense, but you are prioritizing defense, which is a choice.
To me, playing center in the NHL and being a top two center is maybe the hardest spot on the team because the center controls so much of the game in all three zones. So, but you can't expect Byfield to win the Selke Trophy this year, next year. It's just not happening. Mm-hmm. And comparing him to Kopitar, this is a Hall of Famer we're talking about. So I think Byfield's game has really come around in the last 3 weeks or so. He's not hesitating. He's not pulling up on the wall. He's not passing up as many shots. I'd still like him to shoot more. He's got a great shot. And I like Turcotte up the middle. I also like Laferriere up the middle. I think, to me, I want two things as a center, Jim. I want a guy that's really smart, and I want guys with speed. And I think Laferriere, obviously, and Turcotte both fill that bill. So, are the Kings going to make another move and get some more depth up the middle? I don't know. We'd have to ask Ken Holland that question. But I do like the speed that those two, in particular, Byfield and Laferriere, have brought to the team, and, of course, Turcotte.
Byfield has to continue to do what he's done the last little while. Now, I think, Jesse, if I don't have the numbers in front of me, I think he's been more productive offensively since he's been given the defensive role. So, you're just more involved in the game, maybe. You do it that way. Am I saying, no, disappointing season for Quentin Byfield to me. As disappointing as anyone. Because we saw what he could do, and he changed on the wall, keeping it on the outside, looking for a better play. Then recently we've seen him lower shoulder and drive to the net. I remember the overtime move he made against the first game against Minnesota, and it was like, didn't score on it, and I rarely do that. I became a coach. I said, QB, I'm going to show you this clip. That's what because we have not seen that enough. We have not.
For the record, there was a call for you to be a coach on Reddit recently.
Oh, okay.
There was an AI image of you wearing a crown and a cloak.
Yes.
Calling for you to be
broadcasting is a lot more secure. Why don't you stay where you are, Jim?
Oh, God, yeah, I think so. I think so. It's that was, and again, the franchise is going to talk about this forever. You're second overall. We need you to be elite.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame, maybe not. Elite, yes. And we've seen it, but it has not been there consistently. He struggled earlier this year with, again, that. And I thought Jim Hiller said it perfectly last year. If he's going to get to the 30-goal mark, which we hope he does at some point, not going to happen this year. If it does, Kings are in the playoffs. He needs 15 dancing goals, skill goals and 15 grinding goals. And I think QB has struggled with that mental part of the game of wanting it to be a highlight reel goal every time.
Yeah. Jim, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, you can.
So Byfield obviously is still a young player for the most part. Have you noticed in your time in hockey as a player and now as a broadcaster that when players are given a bigger role, sometimes they take a half step back before they take a full step forward because it's a lot to digest? And he basically is going to be taking over for Kopitar next season, full time. Have you noticed that in players when they're given a bigger responsibility?
His timeline has been a little bit different because he started as a wing, started as a centerman, then went almost exclusively to the wing for a year and a half, if not 2 years, and now is back at center. When he was on wing, they were always saying, and I'm in agreement with that, he's a centerman. And he's going to be at center, but he played very well with Kopitar on that wing side, and he was very productive. But he was in the mosh pit. He was down low in front, going into the corner, getting pucks. And if we're talking a lot about him, if we're expecting a lot from it, it's because of his skill set. He's got a match, and I don't think it's hockey sense. I think it's understanding where you're going to be the most productive. And not the most exciting, the most productive. And I think QB is going to be, they're going to keep driving that home, that you've got to drive to the net. You've got to be a power forward in order to be productive.
Just looked it up out of curiosity. Since December 15th, it's just a date I couldn't remember what date Deneau was traded, but I feel like it was a while ago. Quinn Byfield, 2 goals, 3 assists. Kuzmenko and Fiala, 8 points and 7 points respectively. No surprise there. So, the next question: when after the Tampa Bay game, I started to think about this recording.
I just want to say,
yeah.
So he has increased his offense.
I guess.
Because he went 17 games without a goal, and he went 9 games without a point.
So there you go.
So, which is just when you go that far, it's disappointing.
Listen, the offense hasn't been. We know that. After the Tampa loss, I started to think about this recording and started to get a little bit nervous because I was like, "Oh, what are we going to talk about? This is going to be rough. We're going to come in here and I'm just going to be in a bad mood." Fortunately, the 2 Minnesota games happened, and now you can view the Tampa game through a lens of, "Oh, that was a bummer, but they played a really good game." And, Jim Hiller talked about how, the stretch of good play that they've put together, and the Tampa loss was disappointing. But the next question is, how will the special teams perform? And the reason I bring up the Tampa loss in my mood is 7 games ago, whatever it was, the Kings' power play was historically bad. It's still not great, but, the funny thing about points, power play percentage, whatever it is, it's an 82-game season, John. So it doesn't really matter what it is in November. It matters what it is at the end of the season, and it doesn't even matter at the end of the season. It matters what it is when it matters. You can have the worst power play in the league, but if you make it to playoffs and your power play suddenly turns into a 75% power play, well, then who cares what happened? To you. Like Colorado's got a terrible power play. I don't think anybody cares.
Right. I was going to say that power plays to me are very fickle, and I don't quite understand, sometimes why they're doing well or they're not. Until last night, the Kings had scored power play goals in 4 straight. So, now that they've gone to 2 units, in particular, Clark's unit has been better. They're playing more direct. I like that. But I don't know why they struggled so much in the first couple of months. And, when you meet fans on the street or whatever, or, colleagues, and you talk about the power play, we don't have the simple answer. If it was that simple, the coaches would find the answer. I mean, those guys are working every day to try to find solutions. So, but I'll also say that if I'm going into a playoff series and I can have only one thing, I'd rather have a better penalty kill than a better power play. I just think that can help you more in tight games and win you more games. Not to say that I don't want the Kings' power play to be better. It has to be better. But their penalty killing has been up and down this year. Right now it's sort of down a little bit, but I hopefully they can get that rectified.
Yeah, I think it was Craig Button who I heard say it the first time, and I've said it before, and it's to your point, John. When your power play is not working, and I know Jesse's going to say right, but when the power play is not working, the score doesn't change. What about shorthanded goals?
It does.
Okay, but that's Jesse's more worried. I've talked with Jess. I'm going to stop that because I'm not putting words in your mouth.
No, go for it.
No, but when your penalty kill struggles, the score changes, and that's what you want to. That has to be the strongest part. What gets the most attention is the power play. It always does. This is not hindsight. I think the Kings stayed with the 5-man forward unit too long. They should have made those changes a little bit earlier. I know Drew Doughty was out of the lineup, and that's the biggest reason that the coaching staff felt that they couldn't go with a defenseman on each unit. Brandt Clarke, yes, but they wanted, and then they were worried, team comes back to even strength. What's happening if you don't have a defenseman? All those things going on, but still, I believe they stuck with that a little bit too long. I understand you're waiting for it, and if you're a player, I think you love Jim Hiller for that because he's given you the best opportunity in the world. Even when things aren't working, he's sticking with you. I believe in you, but they went too long with that. And hopefully now, you got 2 units, a defenseman on each unit. Brandt is taking more of a charge issue. His unit has been more effective. And again, I think he's earned it. So.
And to me, a great example of what a penalty killing unit can do for you was last night's game. Very even first period. The Wild had 1 power play in the first. It was really good. Kemper made some great saves. In the second period, the Wild had 2 power plays, and the second one was average. The third one, the Kings did a great job. And right away, the Kings turned the game around with those 2 kills. And then they scored those 2 goals to go ahead. So to me, last night, the penalty kill was maybe the number one reason that the Kings turned the game around and really grasped that game and won the hockey game because of the PK.
They scored Minnesota on the second of the double minors.
Yeah.
I thought getting through that first one was
right. It was
huge,
a great point.
Because if they score at that point, they're back within 1 with still time on the clock.
Right.
Deflating type of thing. Even though they scored on the second part, I think that was just getting by that first one was so important because if they could have tied it up by scoring 2 on the same power play, the double minor.
Jim didn't want to put words in my mouth, and I appreciate that, but I'll put the words in my mouth because I think I know where he was going. John, my concern with the power play always is not whether or not it's scoring because, like you said, it's fickle. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. My issue is if your power play starts to hurt you. If it's ceding momentum to the other team, and that can come in shorthanded goals against you, but it also can just come in chances. And my problem is the cascading effect. If your power play is not only not scoring, but also other teams know that they can pressure you, that they can get chances against you, that your power play is just as much 2 minutes of a break for them as it is for you, then they don't have to worry about playing safe, responsible hockey at 5-on-5. They can take more chances. They can take their foot off the gas because if they get caught flat-footed chasing you and they hook you, so what? Your power play is terrible. They can get as many chances. You know what I mean? So it just.
Well, I don't disagree with anything you just said there. It might be a little different than conversations we've had in the past.
Yes.
I think you put a higher priority on shorthanded goals against, and I put a higher priority on it's not working.
You're right.
And that's to your point now. And you're right, Jesse. Other teams, it became obvious.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, it was Boston. Here, Zadorov. Big player, good player, all that. Killing a penalty, he gets the puck and he attacks. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, okay, now the other teams have put that into their game plan because the Kings were using 5 forwards.
Yeah. I agree with what you said. And I think early on, talking the first couple of months, when the 5 forward unit clearly was not working, it really hurt the Kings. Not the fact they didn't score, that hurt, but they were not effective and they lost momentum. I haven't seen that in the last month or so. They haven't scored a ton of power play goals, but when they don't score, they're still getting chances.
Yeah.
And I think the reason is they've gone to 2 units. They're not using the 5 forwards anymore, and they're shooting the puck more. So I still think they can do more of that. The players say that all the time. Simplify it, put pucks on net, get bodies there. So if you're getting chances and you're simplifying things, you're not going to lose momentum just because you don't score a goal.
I said for a long time on whatever platform I was afforded that my primary concern was shutting down that thing that I'm concerned with, and I think they have. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe Tampa. Or who did they play before Tampa? I don't even remember. But there were
Colorado?
one or two power plays where they weren't as aggressive, but there was a little bit of penalty kill cherry picking going on. Not a ton. Mm-hmm. And it was like, oh, well, I don't love that. But it's not as aggressive as it used to be. Now I'm like, okay, now we can figure out, will it work? And what do they have, a power play goal in 5 or 6 games straight?
Well, 4 straight till last night.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's more control and more execution. It's there, but it's nowhere near what it needs to be. But I like it that way because if you're going to make the playoffs, I'd rather go in with a bad power play if you're going to make it than a good one, because if it gets shut down, it takes away a big part of your team. Whereas if you haven't relied on it all year and it only gets better, then it's a bonus. But
nowhere to go about
John's point is well taken. It's the PK that you got to focus on, and that still has to get more consistent for the Kings. It has been great, and it was a big factor in the win. It was the factor in the win, I thought. But they had that bad stretch early. Then they had about a 7 or 8 span where it was really, and then they dropped off again, and now it seems like, so work on it and be consistent.
I really like that Jim Hiller said to the media, I don't remember how many games ago it was, when he said we're moving away from a first unit, second unit approach to the power play. Whoever's clicking will get more time. And for the most part, when I've paid attention, that he's
starting that unit.
He's held to that. I like that.
A lot of times you can't because of guys who were on the edge, but he's starting the Clark unit.
And even Zach Dooley in his article referred to the Kopitar unit as the second unit, which made me laugh because I was like, okay, that's fun.
Right now, just for unit name, I go with the defenseman.
Sure.
So it's the Doughty unit and the Clark unit. That helps me because they balanced out the forwards, right?
Yeah.
We're hockey nerds, as you know, Jesse. We watch hockey every single night.
I prefer the term geek, but sure.
Okay, geeks. So what I observe every night watching hockey around the NHL is you rarely see a power play goal with 2 or 3 passes on the tape, seam passes, backdoor tap in. Most of the power play goals are just get it to the net, get a tip, get a rebound, cause chaos, whatever. Or sometimes the goalie lets in a bad goal. And I think the Kings, they're doing more of that, and they need to continue to do more of that because those 4 or 5 tic-tac-toe passes just they're not common in the NHL, even with the very best players in the world.
I wanted to say most of the power play goals for the Kings are Corey Perry, but I just looked it up. It's only 3, so but it feels like a lot more.
He's kept a lot of pucks alive on other goals.
Yeah, that's true.
Guys putting in the rebound or the second
or screening.
Chance. Yeah, screening.
Yeah,
you don't get a point, right?
No.
But
next question was a goofy one I threw in at the start, which was, who will anyone besides Kopitar wear the C this season? Obviously, it's not going to happen. But because of injury and other reasons, we have seen, Jim, an opportunity for other players to emerge in leadership roles, as undefined a term as that is.
Yeah, it's undefined. You're right. Different ways to lead. Drew and Kopi, probably the biggest contrast. Drew with all the noise and Kopi with quiet and example and technique. Go out there. This is how we need to do it. It's Kopi's down again, and hopefully not that long, but he's down again. So according to Jesse, someone's going to be wearing the C the rest of the year.
I don't know about the rest of the year. Sorry, Joe, I was just going to skip to the last two because we
addressed that question a few times.
Yeah,
to me, no one else is. No,
it's not going to happen. It was just.
And I think my opinion. I was never a player. I think letters are a little overrated.
Sure.
I think you lead by example on the ice, and to me, the Kings have a lot of really good, solid leaders. So that's my opinion.
I respect Jesse in a lot of different reasons, but not Jess. The reason, and we've talked about this before, you bring up things that some people don't think about.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's not bad to banter that around.
Exactly.
Every once, just banter around, put it out there.
So we are going to combine the last two questions because it's really the same one. And this part, Tyler, is where I'm going to ask you to play that video from Jim Hiller that they played during the pregame roll last night against Minnesota. Yeah. And it was Jim Hiller talking to the team in the locker room after the first win against Minnesota. And play the video here.
Okay, and the very most important thing, I think that was the one tonight. I think that was the game. I really believe that. I think that was the game tonight. You guys came in, the way we played. That was the game tonight that turns us around. Okay, that's it.
So, John, Jim Hiller has spoken a lot over the last, week or two about believing that the team had it in them. I don't remember the exact language, but the concept of like coming together and stringing some together and becoming the team that he believes the team could be. And I, just speaking totally honestly, I'm less optimistic in nature, and I started to feel a little uncomfortable every time he did it, because I felt like, oh, come on, that's where we're at. Just like, come on, audience, clap if you want Tinkerbell to live. Like, that's where we're at of the season. And yet, I didn't believe it after the first Minnesota win, but I 100% am sold after the second Minnesota win. I do think this could be the thing that turns the season around, particularly because the Pacific Division, it seems like you can go 2-6-2 and still be. I mean, how many different teams have gone 2-6-2 in this conference? And we're all still all of them are still in contention for first spot in the West. So, I mean, why not?
Yeah. It has been a very interesting couple of weeks since the holiday break. The big win against Anaheim. I thought they played really well in Colorado against, obviously, the best team in hockey. The most disappointing game to me, perhaps, this season was the Tampa Bay game, because the Lightning had played the night before. The Kings have a lead late in the game. They only had, 20 shots on goal. And we talked to Jim Hiller before the first Minnesota game, if he talked to players about the standings, and he said, I rarely do, but yesterday I did. I think that Tampa game, in hindsight, might have been a wake-up call for this team. In other words, if they don't get their act together, then they're going to miss the playoffs, because they have too many teams right now around them bunched up, a lot of them from the Central Division that are fighting for a wild card spot. But the Kings could very well now finish in first place or get a top 3 seed. Hopefully they will. But I think that Tampa game might have been a wake-up call. And to beat Minnesota back-to-back games, one of the best teams in the NHL, hopefully that's a springboard for a lot of really good things here.
They're going to go back before Christmas. Home games, back-to-back losses.
Seattle.
And was one of them
Columbus.
Columbus.
Bad losses.
Then you're going, okay, blah, blah, blah. And I know in the stretch the Kings are in now, and we brought it up in one of our opens recently, where it's, okay, 9 of the next 10 games are against playoff teams, teams currently in a playoff spot, so it's going to be tough. My point was, who cares, right? We're talking too much about the other team. It's about the time the Kings get it together, regardless of who they're playing. Yeah, they played good against Colorado. They played good against Tampa Bay. They lost those games. I swear, the Tampa Bay game, the way it went, I knew they were going to lose in regulation. I just knew it. It was just, it fell apart. And for that reason, maybe it is the wake-up point. Let's hope. Maybe that game right there is the wake-up point of...
That's the 7-2 loss to the Sharks last year?
Yes, which happened earlier in the season.
Yeah, it's like
right?
November or something.
Yeah, so that's... But now, again, I'm looking less at the opposition. Next game, the Kings will play against the San Jose Sharks, and San Jose's in a back-to-back. Okay, you go, I don't care. I don't care about that stuff. Kings, you execute. Kings, you keep the same mentality you've had now for 5 or 6 or 7 games, where it is more aggressive with the puck. We can defend, great. Well, you still have to score a few more goals, and the balance of that offense and defense has been there of late. It has been. And I'm not worried about the defense. The offense is coming around. Armia's down, we don't know how long. Kopitar's down, we don't know how long. Someone's going to have to make the adjustments and step up. That means Fiala, he's going to have to play more.
In 20 minutes. We might find out that they're back. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, but I'm just, in that game, if you're a Fiala, if you're a Kempe, if you're a Byfield, if you're a Ferry, you're going to get more ice time. You can do that for a 10 to 12 game segment. You can't do it the whole year because just fatigue will get you. But you can do that. And that's, I remember it was 3 years ago, Tampa Bay comes in and they have injuries to their defense, and because of salary cap, they could only dress 4 defensemen. But guess what? Victor Hedman was one of the healthy guys, and he played 68 minutes of a 60-minute game, and they beat the Kings. So the guys, they're going to get more. The skilled guys, the higher-end guys are going to get more. That's what we need. And I think Kevin Fiala of late has, again, not as dynamic. I mean, the goal he scored with Kuzmenko and the Chris, great. but he's been good, and I think he's earning more ice time in non-offensive situations.
Second half, Kevin Fiala could not have shown up any more perfectly timed.
He beat the clock then, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah. Last question, and hopefully this will allow you to think about other teams.
Yeah, that's hard. Yeah.
And this one dawned on me the other day, John. I was just talking out loud doing All the King's Men with Russell Morgan, and I thought, if I was Nashville or Seattle or Buffalo or maybe Pittsburgh, I would be terrified right now that a move that I made to try and make the playoffs in this weird season might be the wrong move. Like, maybe it'll help you this year, but maybe you're putting all your, eggs in one basket. Maybe you're buying a satchel of magic beans because next year the standings go back to normal and you've pulled all your triggers. Whereas the Kings,
closer to the playoffs,
yes,
farther from the Stanley Cup.
But I'd be terrified that this season was so unique that I did the wrong thing. Whereas if I'm the Kings, I know Andre Kopitar is retiring. I know this summer things have to change one way or the other. Jim said, he believes the center that will make all this work isn't currently
Before
on
the
roster.
season started, I felt that at the trade deadline, if the Kings were in a playoff position, that they would go big. They wouldn't go depth. They would go big. You need two. You need a buyer and a seller. But I just looked at the whole makeup of the team, and I think this was even before Anjay announced that he was going to retire. I just think it's time.
But is it possible that they're in the best of all the teams in the league, given how absolutely bonkers this season is? They're the ones that can take the biggest swing because they're the ones that know for a fact that status quo is changing. Buffalo has to deal with the consequences of whatever they do, and they're in a spot where it's like, oh my God, we could make the playoffs for the first time in 2 decades.
Yeah, I think Buffalo is a little bit of a outlier because if they could make the playoffs and they just fired their general manager, hired Jarmo Kekalainen, that would be big for that ownership group and the market. I don't think you can put Buffalo in the same category as Boston, Pittsburgh. If those teams trade a first-round pick for a top player that might be on an expiring contract, it's fool's gold. But to me, Buffalo, they really need to make the playoffs for that organization.
The one thing I know for sure is going to happen, and because Colorado is so far in front right now, they're going to win their division, so they're going to get first seed, or someone from that will get first seed. So I know for sure that either the Kings are going to win the Pacific, and Edmonton's going to be the second wild card, and the Kings will play Edmonton. Or in the Pacific, it'll be Kings 2 and 3 with Edmonton, and we'll play the Edmonton Oilers again.
Please don't say that. Please don't.
No,
I don't want that to happen.
I don't think I could handle it. I just think, like I said,
Bizarro season, Jesse.
No, it is, which is why it'll be the Kings and the Ducks in the first round. And
the old freeway face-off
for the second time
in
franchise history. I just think, like I said, it just occurred. I hadn't thought about it previously, but I just thought, Columbus, for example, made a push for the playoffs however many years ago, and now they find themselves in last place. Winnipeg looked to bolster, and now they find themselves in last place. There's tons of teams that could take that swing. And if you swing wrong, because you never know, right? Jim and I have talked about this a million times, John, the 2016 season when they got Lucic, I say it's one of the worst trades ever, and Jim says, well, if they'd won the Cup, would you feel that way? And puts me in my spot, and I have to reconsider everything I've thought about.
But they never came close to winning the Cup.
No, they did not. But they made the play.
Yeah.
I think they set record for most home wins. It was a good team. They just didn't perform in the playoffs. That's a whole other episode. The point is, I just think the Kings, between the goaltending prospect depth, draft picks, knowing that the team will look fundamentally different next year, just means that your margin for error is I don't want to say bigger or smaller. It's just, you have to change everything, so why not change everything? Just go for it. Why not?
Well,
it's a weird season.
It is weird, and if you go back to preseason, Luc Robitaille said that we feel like we're going to go for it, and we're a top team. And
I appreciate you not using the words "we're right there."
What's that?
I said I appreciate you not using the phrase "we're right there."
The Kings have
forbidden.
Not proven that they're a contender.
No.
Not for playoffs, yes. Not for the Cup. How do you get there?
You got to do it.
You got to dig in and swing for the fences.
Well, I think because this season is so truly bizarre, I say go for it. The real question, and we won't have an answer for this 5 years from now, is this the new status quo, or is this really an outlier? Like, if next season the standings are bunched up the same way they are this season, well, then everything needs to be reevaluated, and
Bizarro.
Yeah.
Because you have the parity, and then you have a team with 3 regulation losses.
Yeah.
That's not parity. They're so far ahead.
No, there's one team and everybody else,
Yes,
and then there's one
right.
division, really, and then everybody else.
Yes.
Actually, before we wrap it up, I do want another thought I had, and this sort of talks about the parity. Jim Hiller talked to us. I asked him, because I noticed when they practice the power play, they always practice it from a face-off zone set. They never practice zone entries or rush plays on the power play, and I get it. It's difficult and everything. But what made me think of it is, I think Quinn Hughes, I don't remember who he hit with the stretch pass on the power play in the first game against Minnesota. Yes, but it wasn't. And I thought to myself, I wonder if Darcy Kemper was caught off guard, because the only time they ever practiced the power play, he's practicing against a face-off setup, not a 200-foot play coming at him. And then I thought, well, why don't they practice it? And I asked Jim Hiller about it after an immediate availability in the practice, and he said, and it just started me thinking about parity, because everybody plays that slingshot system where they do the drop pass in the neutral zone. Is it possible that every team right now is kind of playing the same way? Maybe not all 60 minutes, but every team's got the same guys. Every team's got this, and I read this fascinating article about why Canada keeps losing to Czechia. And it was saying that because hockey has become so centralized and so system-based and well-coached, that Canada can't improvise anymore. That they're playing the right way, but when they come up against the team that's just a little bit more creative than them, they don't know what to do. And I thought, well, maybe that's just the NHL right now. Maybe everybody's playing systems, but Colorado's got Makar and McKinnon, and that's enough to make them outliers.
Yeah, specifically on the entries, like you're saying, the slingshot, or there's at least 3 teams that don't worry about that. Edmonton, McDavid.
Right.
Colorado, Makar, Minnesota, Hughes. They don't need that.
Right.
They just give the puck to that guy, and they get the puck in the zone. And a lot of teams don't have that.
Let me bring up one other point. I read an article the other day about Canada and their, youth programs and junior team. They have 4 or 5 players that would be on the the World Junior team that are playing in the NHL. So you can't overlook that.
Right.
And I'm Canadian like Jim is, and I'm pulling for the U.S. and Canada 1-2. But don't forget, they have some players that are not on the team that would have been on the team, and top players, obviously.
No, Jim's an American citizen.
I'm dual.
Well, I'm too. I'm dual as well. That's why I cheer for both teams.
You know what I cheer for? I cheer for the team that has most to lose. So in hockey, I cheer for Canada, because if they lose, it's devastating to the country. In women's soccer, men's soccer, even though Canada's getting better, if the U.S. loses, they're devastated.
Right.
And so I cheer for the U.S. in women and men's soccer. So I just go that way, back and forth, depending on who has the most to lose, and you go that way. It's the thing you're talking, Jesse, it's been talked about for a while now. When you're 12 years old, you're slotted in as a third line left winger, and that's your role for the rest of your life. And that's interesting. The coaching gets to a point where it stagnates certain skill sets. But then again, now we see, man, some of the skill we're seeing now. That Schaefer kid, right?
Yeah.
Oh, when he comes in and he's playing minutes, and
We're not talking about Josh, right?
No, we're not.
No, he's great too.
Yeah. He's way better.
Yeah.
It's just, wow, so we're getting the skill, but yes, the systems. Remember 3-on-3 overtime? Used to be great. But now it's a little bit of you got to take it back out and start over again. And that's just systems. That's just coaching.
I can't wait to see how somebody figures out to break the slingshot, because I'm tired of it. But that's a conversation
the
for
Kings
another
have
day.
used it at least 3 times in the last 2 years, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
But where they make the same stretch pass, bunt back, breakaway goal. Fiala scored one this year like that. Kempe scored one like that a couple years ago, last year. So it's in your repertoire, but as Jim Hiller told you, I was there when you asked the question, the metrics tell them that
It
that's
works.
the best way to go.
That's what's most annoying about it. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're going to wrap it up because we got practice in about 10 minutes. Thanks for watching, Kings fans. We'll do this again in a lot longer, I think, because of the Olympics.
Before the playoffs?
Yeah, well, like right at the trade deadline.
Okay.
And the questions might change because the trade deadline might change things. But
Okay, I hope they change a little because we've answered the same 10 questions 3 times now.
I'll write 10 new ones.
I appreciate that.
I've been wrong every time. Like
No,
30
no.
times now.
Yeah.
Right, and I hope you feel better, and I hope you feel better.
Yeah, I feel okay. It's just, I don't know.
You're a little froggy.
It's early, and you probably tell by the eyes.
It's
early.
the upper
I-
respiratory
I'm-
thing
no.
that everybody's got. I've been
I just
fighting
got
it
in
for-
like 3
yeah.
hours ago. So.
Ooh, wow.
Thanks for watching, Kings fans. We'll talk to you soon.